a second year of temperatures over 100 degrees in my store, and still they didn't do anything to fix it. I don't think that's how a multi-million-dollar company like Starbucks should be treating their employees.
Check it out.
Hey guys, welcome back to Life Rocks. As promised, I am going to be sharing my experience of managing a Starbucks store with you guys. I'm going to be breaking this down into a two-part series. So the first portion is going to be just some of the experiences that I had as the manager working for the company. I'm going to talk about some of the unrealistic expectations that they have for some of their partners. The second part of this series is going to be about how I was treated at Starbucks as a chronically ill employee. First, I'm going to start off with some of the good. One of the great things about working for Starbucks is that they do give you the freedom to share your opinion and your experiences. Even if you are currently employed with the company, they will never terminate you, write you up, retaliate against you for publicly sharing your experience and your opinion, just as long as you make it clear that that is your personal experience and your opinion. So what I'm sharing with you guys is my experience that I had working with this company. I started working for Starbucks in 2015 and I stopped managing a Starbucks store in 2018. If you're a Starbucks partner, leave me a comment down below and let me know what is your favorite thing about working for Starbucks. And also, if you've got some Starbucks horror stories to share, leave those in the comments too. I would love to hear them. One thing that Starbucks really does a great job of is making their mission statement and their values come to life in their store every day. They do that through requiring partners to meet specific standards in every position worked in the Starbucks store. So collecting names when taking orders and calling out names when passing out drinks or food items are a requirement for those positions in the stores. You're required to learn the names of your customers and learn their favorite drink orders. One of the downsides to that is when you require all of your employees to remember your customers' names and your orders, that is a very ableist requirement. There is a neurological condition that causes facial recognition problems. It's as if you're blind to people's faces and you can't recognize one person from another. I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce this neurological illness. As we all know, neurological illnesses usually have really long, complicated names like mal de débarquement syndrome. So the name of the condition that causes facial recognition blindness, I'm going to put it right up here. If you're interested in learning more about it, you can go look it up. So if one of your team members has this condition, they're not going to be able to meet the requirements set out by Starbucks to know every customer's name and to remember all of their drink orders. And since that is considered an invisible illness, that might be something that an employee is trying to hide or that they're not comfortable talking about or sharing with anyone. And then to force them to be in a situation where they have to remember customers' names and orders in order to be considered meeting standard job requirements, it can really put them in an uncomfortable situation. I've done quite a few videos about the brain fog that can come along with mal de débarquement syndrome and vestibular migraine. A lot of the brain fog causes memory problems and difficulty with words. Therefore, if I were experiencing high symptoms, my memory would have a hard time recalling my customers' names and what specifics they wanted in their drinks. And if I was also having particularly bad symptoms, it would be a struggle to get those words out. Even if I could remember their names, it was hard to get their name out. With vestibular migraines and mal de débarquement syndrome being an invisible illness also, it was not something that I was comfortable talking about when discussions came up about the requirement to know all customers' names and drink orders. Personally, due to the fact that a lot of medical conditions, especially neurological conditions, can lead to difficulty with this, I don't think that it should be a job requirement. I think that it should be something that they do encourage as part of their value system and being able to make those connections with their customers. But to have such an ableist point of view that somebody who has a medical condition that causes them to struggle with that feels like they are failing at their job or unable to meet the minimum basic requirements is a bit of an issue. Another thing I noticed about Starbucks is kind of a double-edged sword. They're open 18 to 24 hours a day. It really does give a lot of flexibility to people with specific scheduling needs. Like I said, that was a double-edged sword, so there was a downside that I saw to that as a manager. It was really difficult to make sure that I had enough employees on my team who were available during all the different day parts. You cannot hire a brand new person and immediately throw them into your morning peak. It's literally like throwing someone to the wolves. Morning peak at Starbucks is no joke. The long hours that the Starbucks stores are open also makes for some really long shifts for managers. If one of your key holder employees gets sick, they're not allowed to come to work and be handling food and beverages and serving them to the public. So there were quite a few days where I expected to be off at a certain time, but my key holder was unable to come in because they were sick or because they had a family emergency, which turned into a really, really long, exhausting day for me. One really great thing about Starbucks is that they do offer a great benefit program even to part-time employees, and a lot of companies don't do that. When I worked for Starbucks, I'm not sure if it's still the same, but when I worked there, if you worked at least 20 hours a week, you qualified for their health insurance. You also qualified for their college achievement program, which lets you take online courses through ASU for free. Unfortunately, during my time there as a Starbucks store manager, I never did see one of my employees take advantage of this opportunity. A lot of them came from privileged backgrounds and their parents were sending them to very highly recognized colleges. And a lot of them really wanted the opportunity to enjoy that college campus life, which you really don't get from an online course. Another one of the really great perks about working for Starbucks is the free beverages. So they encourage their team members to show up for their shifts early rather than just on time by letting them get a drink up to 30 minutes before their shift starts. So a lot of team members will show up early and they'll get a drink and hang out in the cafe, which was really nice. As a store manager, I could count on a lot of my team members to be there on time and early. Starbucks also allows you to get a free beverage on each of your breaks. You're also allowed to get a free drink up to 30 minutes after your shift, so that means you can take a free drink home with you. If you think about the price of a Starbucks drink and add that up and figure that you're doing that every shift that you work, that's a really, really great benefit to have. But the downside to that, when you leave Starbucks, it's probably going to be a pretty bad habit to break. Another great thing that Starbucks does is they offer all of their employees, which they do call partners, by the way. So if you hear me using the term partner, I'm basically just talking about a Starbucks employee. Starbucks also offers a free food item to every partner during every shift that they work, no matter how short their shift. I thought that it was a great way for them to be looking out for their partners and making sure that everybody had a good meal every day. The downside to that free meal benefit was that the meal was required to be yours. Yes, a lot of people did take it home and give it to a family member or a friend, but you weren't supposed to let anybody know that you were doing that. We were not even allowed to go give our free item to a homeless person. I couldn't believe that that's something that they specifically say we cannot do. Now, maybe it's not said everywhere, but they did say that to me during my onboarding first day of training. They do not have specific job titles, like the employee that runs the cash register and the employee that runs the espresso machine and the employee that hands the drinks out the drive-through window. They're all called partners, and they're all required to learn every single task in the whole store. So they should all be able to bounce around and do every task there is there. Training is really, really overwhelming. During your training, you basically have 2 weeks to learn every single position in the store, and you're learning it through online modules and also one-on-one training with your barista trainer. In those 2 weeks, only 20 hours actually get to be coded in labor as training time. So all of the additional time that they're spending in your store during those 2 weeks, outside of the 20 hours of training that they get, they're really just having to fend for themselves and kind of fake it till they make it, which can be really overwhelming for a new person. It's also really difficult for those trainees to do their online modules because Starbucks stores are so incredibly noisy, and Starbucks managers do not actually have offices. Usually our desk is literally right next to the 3-panel dishwashing sink or the Hobart dishwashing machine, and we are just surrounded by chaos and noise all day long. So when our brand new training baristas get to sit down at that desk and sit at the computer and try to do their computer modules, it's a really bad environment for somebody to focus and learn something new in. Oftentimes these partners who are given the opportunity to be barista trainers are not professionally mature enough to really recognize the importance of being a barista trainer. They're not professionally mature enough to recognize how much that brand new team member needs them and their attention to help them succeed. So what ends up happening is that barista trainer ends up kind of goofing off and socializing with all their friends at work, leaving the brand new trainee to kind of fend for themselves and kind of try and figure out what they're doing with no guidance. It was also really difficult to work training in a busy coffee shop because 2 people need to work together to train, but space is very limited behind the counter at all Starbucks stores, and those 2 people working together take up a lot of the workspace, which slows down production for the employees who are actually there serving the customers. I always felt that there should be a training store provided where there is a quiet space for people to learn, and a training store provided where there is actually space at each station for your trainer and trainee to work together and really have the uninterrupted time that they need to help that new team member succeed. The fact that training is such an issue there is the reason that they have such high turnover. Like I said, they're required to have to learn every single position in that store, and you only have 2 weeks to do it in. Once training is over and a partner was not set up for success, it's really difficult to enjoy your job there when you're not confident in what you're doing or confident in your skills as a barista. And nobody likes leaving work every day feeling like they're not good at their job. So that's another big reason that people don't stick around. Now on the other side of that spectrum, you'll find the lifers. You'll find the people who have been with the company for 10, 11, 12 years and love it and are probably never, ever, ever going to leave. If you talk to them about the beginning of their journey, usually they'll tell you that it was really miserable and that they really wanted to quit. But they eventually learned the skills that they needed to succeed. When you go into a Starbucks store where those employees work, you will have a really, really amazing experience as a customer. They know how to make those connections. They are confident in what they're doing. They're good at what they're doing. They make their job look easy. So easy, in fact, that a lot of times our customers want to apply because it looks like a fun job. I can't tell you how many times I interviewed people who were also our customers, and when I asked them why they were interested in working here, they said, it just looks like such a fun job. And a lot of times those were the people who quit the soonest. The reason they felt like it looked like it would be a fun job is because we made it look easy. Not because it is easy, not because it is fun, but we made it look easy and fun. Once they realized that it's a lot of work and not what they expected and not just what they see there behind the counter, there's a whole lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes that is very hard, laborious work. If you've ever worked for Starbucks, leave me a comment down below. Let me know how long you worked there. As a Starbucks store manager, we were required to have our schedules posted 2 weeks in advance. So that means this week's schedule is already posted. Our partners know when they're working. Next week's schedule is already posted. Our partners know when they're working. And on Monday, we were required to write that schedule and post it for that third week out. That being said, when you hire a new employee, there's a high possibility that you've already got your schedule written for the next 2.5 weeks, which means you've probably used your barista trainer, since they're probably one of your strongest baristas, as a scheduled barista that week, since you didn't have anybody to train when you wrote the schedule, and now you don't have a barista trainer to train that new barista because your barista trainer is actually a scheduled employee who needs to be serving the customers. It really creates a lot of headache for the managers when they're trying to coordinate training for their new team members, and keep a balancing act of not overwhelming their barista trainers with asking them to be a barista and a trainer all at the same time. A lot of times that's what ends up happening. You are a barista on the shift, you have a job to do, but you're also trying to train someone new at the same time. It's a really, really difficult thing to juggle, which is exactly why I think that there should be a specific training store where trainers and trainees can work together and really focus on learning and development so that they can come into their stores and be set up for success and be the best baristas possible. Someone might think, hey, why don't you wait to put that new hire on the next schedule that you write so that you can coordinate training appropriately with their barista trainer? Well, most of your new hires were looking for a job because they need a job. And if you tell them, hey, you're hired, but I'm not going to put you on the schedule till I write my next schedule, which isn't going to happen for another 2.5 weeks, they're probably going to find another job within those 2.5 weeks. And then it was pointless to try and schedule their training. A lot of people complain about the entitled customers that we get at Starbucks. And yes, we do get our fair share of those. But they're probably a little bit fewer and far between than the great customers are. Just like we learn our customers' names, a lot of times our customers learn our names too. So it's really great when they walk in the door and you greet each other in the morning and you have something to talk about. We become a part of those customers' lives. So you really will make connections and friendships that will never be forgotten working at Starbucks. We're usually the first person that they're coming into contact with in the morning, and it's our job to make their day start out great. Now, I promised to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, and mostly I've shared the good along with a few caveats. But now it's time to get down and dirty with some of the bad and some of the ugly. When I worked for Starbucks, they did a lot of boasting about their food program and how their food was donated to food banks and shelters and places like that. The majority of their food during the time that I worked there was not allowed to be donated. They basically could only donate the pastry items that did not contain any sort of cream cheese or anything like that. Basically all the things that had no nutritional value. The paninis, the protein bistro boxes, the salads, the cheese danishes. You were not allowed to donate any of those things, which meant that they got thrown away in the trash because you were also not allowed to send them home with your partners. It was considered stealing. So It felt to me like it was a little bit deceiving for Starbucks to tell the public about how much they donate when we were actually throwing so much in the trash every day. And even team members who were struggling financially weren't able to take home an item to have for dinner. Another thing that I noticed when I worked there was that Starbucks talked a lot about how much they recycled and how they were such a green company. Well, during my time there, I worked at 4 different Starbucks locations, and not a single one of them recycled. Our cardboard boxes went into the same dumpster that our trash went into. I also remember seeing a weekly update that said, "Our stores run on sunshine." And then I eventually saw it posted on a board in one of our stores. And it got me thinking, I didn't remember anybody coming in and installing solar panels in any of the stores that I'd worked in. So at that particular store, I asked one of the employees if they had solar panels and if the store was in fact run on sunshine. And it was not run on sunshine. It was run on electricity. So I found that to be a little bit deceiving. Starbucks also has a 10-minute rule, and some customers are aware of this and some customers are not. I'm going to be giving away the secret here if you don't already know this, which is going to make some baristas' life out there a living hell. At Starbucks, you are required to open your doors and be ready to serve your customers 10 minutes before the store actually opens. And you're usually going into the store with one other barista. Our team members also get to the store 30 minutes before actual opening time, meaning 20 minutes before the 10-minute rule opening time. So that gives you 20 minutes to open the store as well. Now, opening the store consists of a lot more than 20 minutes worth of work. That means that one barista is doing all the store setup while the manager is working on all the managerial opening duties. That one barista has a lot of work to do. They've got to fill up every ice bin in the store. They've got to brew a batch of every flavor of coffee that we will have on brew for the day, which means they need to come in and brew a dark roast, a blonde roast, a medium roast, a decaf, and an iced coffee, all within 20 minutes. Now think about how fast your coffee pot works at home. We're dealing with much larger coffee machines in Starbucks. So yes, they're commercial equipment. They probably run a little bit smoother, a little bit faster, but since we're brewing such big batches, it probably takes just as long as your coffee pot at home. Think about how long it would take you to brew 5 pots of coffee. Would you have it done in 20 minutes and be ready to serve some guests? Probably not. In addition to brewing all that coffee, the morning barista is also required to brew all of the iced tea that's on the menu for the day. They have to run a cleaning tab and go through a cleaning process with every espresso machine in the store before we open up. And we also have to make sure that our ovens have preheated. So if you don't remember to turn on that oven the second you walk in the door, you are not going to be ready for that customer that pulls up to your drive-thru at 4:50 and wants a bacon Gouda sandwich, because your oven will not be hot enough yet. It will literally take the whole 20 minutes for your oven to preheat. You're also required to serve customers 10 minutes after you close, so that means if your store closes at 10 p.m., you are required to have your team members finish the cleanup and be clocked out by 10:30. But we also have to continue helping customers that come through our drive-thru or come into our cafe up until 10 after 10, which only leaves 20 minutes for cleanup and shutdown of a Starbucks store. As far as the nightly routine goes, every store is required to have everything available until we close. It's not like we can be running low on coffee at the end of the night, and if somebody wants to order a few venti cups of coffee, we tell them, oh, we just brewed our last batch for the night. No, we have to brew a fresh batch for them, even if it's 10 after 10 and we closed at 10 o'clock, because 10-minute rule. You also have to think about cleanup. Before you and your partners can leave your shift for the evening, the store has to be completely clean and sanitary and ready to begin business the next day. With all of that commercial equipment, it is a lot of work to clean everything. And if you're busy serving drinks and making a mess up until 10:10, and you've got from 10:10 to 10:30 to clean everything up and get clocked out and leave, it's really not realistic. You're talking about mountains of dishes. You're talking about having to clean and wipe down every single sticky bottle, every single bit of sticky syrup splatter from every part of that work area. It's just not realistic to expect your team members to be able to do that in 20 minutes. And with the way labor works at that company, well, the way it worked when I was there, you only earned one team member for every 10 customers that you were getting per half hour. So at the end of the night, when you're getting about 10 customers per half hour, you've only got one barista, one partner, and one manager. You're looking at possibly an average of 3 minutes between each customer. When you think about how long it takes to prepare a drink, how long it takes to heat a food item in the oven, how long it might take to prepare an order of multiple drinks and multiple food items, that one barista and that one manager are generally nonstop busy just making sure that they're meeting the needs and demands of their customers, which means they're really not getting an opportunity to begin their shutdown routine. So closing a store becomes chaotic and frantic when we can't shut down until 10 minutes after we're actually supposed to close, and unable to keep labor in line. We're supposed to be clocking out 30 minutes after closing time, which means 20 minutes after our last customer. I think it's an unrealistic expectation and an unrealistic demand. And I know that a lot of other store managers thought the same thing, because I can't tell you how many Starbucks I went to where they refused to abide by the 10-minute policy. I personally made sure that my team members always followed the 10-minute policy because I know that some of our customers were aware of it. And our customers at Starbucks really like to complain to corporate if things don't go the way they expected. So if a customer were to pull up to our drive-thru at 4:55 and we got on the speaker and said, "Sorry, we don't open until 5, we're gonna get a complaint. I also respected my hiring manager enough to make sure that I was doing my best to follow all of the company policies and meet the expectations. Another thing that I want to talk about involving labor is that Starbucks does not allow as many employees as the workload really needs. Like I said, those people up there in those offices, they don't know what it's like in the stores. They've not gone in there and worked in one of the stores and realized what the workload actually feels like and how fast you have to be moving to keep up with the business and how many different things you have to be juggling when you have so few employees there. I found it really frustrating as a store manager when I had to sit and write my schedule and say, gosh, I'm only allowed to have myself and 2 other employees during this day part, but I know that we won't be able to keep up with allowing breaks and all of our customers' needs during that time. It's going to kill us. We are going to be running on E. But that was all the labor I was allowed. And then I would go into places like Whataburger or other fast food places, other cafes, and I would see so many employees. And nobody was running around like crazy chickens with their heads cut off because there was enough people there to meet the needs of the business. There was enough people there to achieve what they needed to achieve. And I feel like Starbucks was setting us all up for failure because they weren't allowing us enough employees to achieve what we needed to achieve. So I really felt like if Starbucks was investing a little bit more in labor, they would be more likely to meet some of their time goals and some of their customer count goals. But instead, they kind of set you up for failure by not allowing you the labor you would need to achieve those goals and to meet your customers' needs. And also it does create a lot of additional stress on the employees. it makes for a job that we make look easy feel incredibly hard. Every employee there that really does a good job is usually going home on E every day. Me and some of my strongest team members literally felt like we were running a marathon all day, like heart racing, out of breath, running to keep up with things. And if we weren't doing that, there was no way we were going to meet our goals. I think that's an awful lot to expect from your employees at your company, especially when you're hiring new baristas at such a low rate. When somebody comes in to work a new job and they realize that the amount of labor that they're doing is so much higher than they expected, and the pay that they're getting is barely above minimum wage, that creates a lot of turnover. Turnover is also something that managers kind of get graded on. So if your turnover is high, it makes you look like you're a poor leader. And sometimes the managers who are trying the hardest to help their team succeed and to meet the company expectations end up with some of the highest turnover. Because in order to meet those expectations, you and your team really need to work hard. And not everybody is willing to work that hard for that little. Another thing that I always found challenging as a store manager was our morning peak break policy. Your morning peak was generally defined by your 4 busiest hours of the day. So for most stores, that was from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. You were not allowed to give team members breaks during your morning peak. So 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. is 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 hours. If you have an employee working 4 hours, they are required to get a 10-minute break. Like I was explaining before, you bring your employees in during your biggest times because you are only allowed 1 employee for every 10 customers you're seeing per half hour. From that early just opening time until that 7 o'clock hits, you're not seeing a whole lot of customers, which means you don't get to have a whole lot of employees there. You're seeing less customers per half hour because you're just seeing the early risers. You're not seeing those 9 to 5 workers yet. Now comes 7 o'clock when morning peak hits, you're suddenly allowed to have more employees because boom, you're getting more transactions per half hour. So in are coming a bunch of new employees at 7 o'clock. Some of them are only working 4-hour shifts, 7 to 11. But you're not allowed to give breaks from 7 to 11. But you're required by law to give a 10-minute break to all of your employees who work at least 4 hours. That definitely caused a bit of a challenge, and I think it was a policy and expectation that really didn't make a whole lot of sense. For those team members who were only working those 4 hours and were unable to take a break outside of morning peak, we really should be allowed to determine when is the safe time during peak where we are able to handle ourselves while allowing that team member to step away and take a break. So there were times that I broke that policy if I needed to. If I had a team member that was only working from 7 to 11, I made sure that they had their 10-minute break. Because how are they going to have a labor policy and then have an expectation that completely clashes with their labor policy? Like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know who's up there in the big Starbucks corporate office making this stuff up. Which brings me to my next issue as a store manager. We had to place a daily order at Starbucks, and you're required to have your daily order in by 10 a.m. Well, it was really unrealistic to be able to get that order completed before the customers started arriving 10 minutes before we opened. And it was also unrealistic to be able to get that order placed in the morning, as you only have 1 or 2 other baristas to help you with all the customers, because you're needing to work alongside your team and also help them with the customers so that you can keep up with the speed of service and meet your customers' demands. Which means a lot of us didn't get an opportunity to even start thinking about those morning orders until our crew of 7 o'clock team members arrived during morning peak. But during morning peak, managers are required to be on the floor working alongside their team members. So a lot of us struggled to scramble and make an effective, accurate order on a daily basis. I remember oftentimes being the person that was taking the orders in the drive-thru and typing it all into the computer, as well as cooking all the food and trying to place that store order as well. And that could have so easily been alleviated by requiring your orders to be in after peak was over, when you were allowed to step away. Again, I don't understand who's working in these offices deciding, hey, your morning peak is going to be from 7 to 11, which means you need all hands on deck, including management. Nobody is allowed breaks. Nobody's allowed to step off the floor. But also, your order needs to be placed. And while you're placing that order, you're unable to be one of the hands on deck. Another one of those things that just doesn't make sense. The two things completely contradict each other. Another thing I wanted to mention is some of the unrealistic goals that the company has and that they introduce to managers. One in particular, one year when they introduced goals for our window times, because we are required at Starbucks to run a speedy window time while also making a great connection with our customers and using their names. At the time that this specific situation occurred, stores were required to be at 42 seconds or less out the window. That means when your customer pulls up to the window in their car, you have 42 seconds to greet them and tell them how much their order was, to take their payment, to hand them back their credit card or their change or whatever else you need to hand them, as well as their drinks, straws, food, whatever else they need, and make a genuine connection and tell them to have a great day and make them feel like you really cared. You only have 42 seconds to make that all happen. And then on top of that, as the company goal, the goal was to improve that week over week by 2 seconds. So that meant every week we were supposed to reduce that window time by 2 seconds. So for instance, this week we're at 42 seconds, which means next week we should be at 40 seconds. Here's where that doesn't make sense to me. There are 52 weeks in a year. If we're supposed to be at 42 seconds at the beginning of the year and improve by 2 seconds every week, well, that means within 21 weeks, we should be at 0 seconds. So we'll be like literally chucking drinks out the window at people. How can we make a customer feel appreciated and recognized and like we actually care about them? We don't even have time to collect their money. We don't have time to tell them to have a nice day. We're just hucking drinks out the window to meet a 0 second window time. It's completely unachievable. And not only that, but there are more than 21 weeks in a year, right? It just takes 21 weeks to get down to the 0 window time if we were meeting the goal that the company set out for us. But since there are 52 weeks in a year, that means by the end of the year, we should be running negative seconds. And I'm just not sure that a barista or even a Starbucks store manager has the capability to make time run backwards. Because as far as I know, even rocket scientists can't make that happen. You know, we have a joke that we say at Starbucks. We always say, not all superheroes wear capes. Some of us wear green aprons. But even a superhero, like the most amazing barista on the planet, cannot make time run backwards. So I think that that was a very, very unrealistic goal for the company to set in front of us. It was really interesting at the meeting when they announced that goal, because they said every store should be at 42 seconds or less right now. And our goal this year is to improve that by 2 seconds every week. It's just 2 seconds, guys. Can we do this? And everybody in the room sat around and said, yeah, we can do this. Just 2 seconds. Yeah, we can do it. And then they said, is this a realistic goal? Can we make this happen this year? And everybody said, yes, we can. And I sat there looking around going, am I stupid or something? Can I not math? Because I don't think we can do this. But everybody else thinks we can. And I literally had to go have a conversation with my boss and say, hey, these people are saying that they can do something that I don't know how to do. They all sat there at that meeting and they all nodded their heads and they said, yes, this is realistic and yes, we can do it. But I sat there doing the math and said, no, this is not realistic. That's not a possibility. And I asked him, am I dumb? Like, am I the one that can't figure something out when everybody else has it mastered? And that was really frustrating for me as a store manager, to go to management meetings and be surrounded by other store managers who didn't stand up for what was real and what was right and what was achievable. And they just sat there and nodded their head and pretended like they were capable of doing everything that the company was saying they needed to do. Another example of that was they have something called store manager approach. And it's basically like this weird, vague idea of how the store manager is supposed to approach their job and be able to achieve all of the things that they're supposed to achieve while also being a team member who works alongside their baristas on a daily basis for most of their day. When I was a new manager, I was struggling to keep up with all of my management duties while working alongside my team to support them. So at meetings, I asked for advice. Now, how are you guys able to complete XYZ of your management duties without having to stay hours late after your shift was supposed to end? Or without having to take your work home with you and spend hours at home doing it because you didn't have time to do it in the store? And all of them looked at me like I was dumb and just said, manager approach. We just follow manager approach. And they said that while our boss was in the room. When the boss stepped out of the room, I was like, hey guys, like for real, I am struggling with this whole manager approach thing. Like, what, can you break it down for me? Like, what do you even mean by a manager approach? Like, that doesn't give extra hours to me in the day. So I still don't understand how to find time to do these things. And they all just rolled their eyes at me and said, yeah, neither do we. We just tell our boss what he wants to hear. They want to hear we get it done. They want to hear we follow manager approach. We say we get it done. We say we'd follow manager approach. That was so frustrating as a store manager, to be the only one who was brave enough to show my vulnerability and say, hey, I'm struggling with doing this. I need somebody to teach me how to be successful, when nobody else really was successful, but they just lied through their freaking teeth and said they were succeeding greatly at it. And I looked like the outcast. I looked like the dummy who was incapable of doing my job. When in reality, I was doing my job better than anyone else. And in the beginning, I just didn't have the confidence to realize it. Now, you might have been hoping to learn some of our proprietary Starbucks recipes, but we actually are not allowed to share that as Starbucks employees, so I will not be sharing any of our Starbucks recipe secrets with you guys. But I will talk a little bit about the secret menu. Many customers don't know the secret menu is not a Starbucks provided menu. If you order something from the secret menu, like, oh, can I get a Captain Crunch Frappuccino? We don't know how to make that. We ain't got no Captain Crunch in our store. Customers make up those drinks and then they post it online and say it's a secret menu item. So a lot of our customers can be frustrated when they come to a Starbucks store and they're like, oh, I want the such and such. And we're like, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. And then they roll their eyes at us and they're like, it's on the secret menu. Secret menu items are kind of hell for baristas. First of all, we often deal with frustrated customers that treat us like we're dumb because we don't know how to make the drink that they found on a secret website on a menu that was not part of our training because it's not a Starbucks recipe. Which is a little bit discouraging. It makes you uncomfortable. It makes you lose your confidence because somebody treated you like you were dumb, and you're really not dumb. You're just doing your job and you know how to do your job, but they're expecting you to know how to do something that's not your job. And it's just not a great situation to be in. Another thing is those secret menu items often have tons and tons of modifications, meaning it takes a long time to make some of those drinks. And if we're required to have a 42-second window time, but you've ordered a drink that has so many weird steps and extra ingredients in it that it takes 2 minutes to make the drink, that really, really hurts the window times. So if you are going to order a secret menu item, be gentle with your barista. If you have a favorite secret menu drink, leave me a comment and let me know what your favorite one is. Another thing that I really found to be an issue at Starbucks is that there is no assistant manager. So as a store manager at Starbucks, you do not have an assistant manager. Most companies that you work at, when you have an assistant manager, they are your right-hand man. They are the person who's invested just like you are. They're the person who wants to succeed just as much as you do. They want to help the team succeed just as much as you do. They want to prove themselves so that they can move up and become a store manager themselves. So they really work hard and they're really there to help you run the store the way you need it to be run. Since that company doesn't have assistant managers, as a store manager, you are really on your own to make that success happen in your stores. Yes, you do have kind of a supervisor team. Starbucks had what they called shift supervisors when I was there. So basically they were somebody that had been a barista. They had mastered all of the different barista positions. They had had an opportunity to teach somebody through the barista training program. And then they were trained in some leadership responsibility and just kind of being the manager on duty for opening and closing procedures. But those shift leaders, they don't really make much more than a barista. So when they get promoted to that shift leader position from the barista position, it's usually only $1 or $2 raise, maybe $3 if they're lucky. Therefore, they don't become quite as invested as an assistant manager would. So it's really difficult to help your leadership team, which is basically just shift supervisors that are barely making more than your baristas. It's tough to teach them to follow your leadership footsteps and to make sure that your leadership presence is in the store even when you're not and when they're running their shifts. You've really got to work hard to make them care enough to be invested in that and be invested in your vision and be invested in making that store as successful as you want to make it. So that's another big problem I saw with that company. I think that those stores need assistant managers. Those store managers need the support of an assistant who is just as invested as they are. And now to my final ugly thing in this video. This is probably one of the most ugly situations I had to deal with as a manager at Starbucks. I live in Texas where it's very hot. My Starbucks was a drive-through only Starbucks, which meant it was very tiny and it was surrounded by windows. That hot summer sun coming through those windows in a tiny building with hot espresso machines running and hot convection ovens running the entire day made for an extremely hot building, especially when our AC didn't work properly. That being said, in the summertime, my store was often over 100 degrees inside where my employees were working. And like I said, every day was like a marathon. We were running and we were working hard as we could in a store that was over 100 degrees. Now, we did have a facilities department that was supposed to take care of all of our maintenance, whether it be yearly and monthly maintenance or just maintenance on a specific piece of equipment that was broken down. I did report to our facilities maintenance department multiple times that our air conditioner unit was not effectively cooling our store, and they really did nothing about it. Like all year, nothing about it. We spent an entire summer in there working in conditions that were over 100 degrees, and they did nothing to help us. They would send somebody in, oh, we'll send somebody in to look at it. Then somebody would come in to look at it, and then they'd disappear and nothing would happen. Eventually, the next year, as my requests to the facilities department got a little bit more direct, they did finally say, oh yeah, we are gonna install a new unit, but we're just waiting for it to be built. Waiting for an air conditioner to be built. That's weird. I don't think that you need to wait for them to be built. Anybody who has an air conditioner in your house, if your air conditioner breaks down and you call an air conditioner repairman, is he ever gonna be like, well, I'll order you a new air conditioner, but it's gonna be about 6 months for them to get it built? No. You don't order an air conditioner and wait to get it built. And you know how I know this? For my house, my boyfriend ordered a commercial grade air conditioner, an air conditioner that's meant for a building, and he installed it in our house. Did he have to wait for that commercial grade air conditioner to be built? No, he just ordered it online and it was here. So that tells me Starbucks was lying to me. And we continued to work in a store that was over 100 degrees while they continued to lie and to give us excuse after excuse after excuse, and to give us false promises and false hope of, oh, we're gonna have it fixed, oh, we're gonna bring you a new one, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. A second year of temperatures over 100 degrees in my store, and still they didn't do anything to fix it. I don't think that's how a multi-million-dollar company like Starbucks should be treating their employees. And then I finally sent another email. And I talked about getting ugly before. Boy, was I ugly in this email. I called them out on it, and I let them know it is absolutely unacceptable to leave partners and employees working in a store that is over 100 degrees and not solve the problem. That's completely unacceptable. I let them know that they were putting me and my employees at risk for heat stroke on a daily basis, and that I was not going to allow my employees to be put in harm's way anymore, and they needed to come out and fix that air conditioner. They needed to do it now, and I told them I was done with their false promises. I was done wasting my time sending email after email. They needed to do their job. I had already done mine. They can do theirs and get out here and get the job done, or they should be held accountable by the proper person. I was really ugly. Well, lo and behold, that ugliness got me a new AC. Suddenly we didn't need to wait for one to be built. Suddenly there were ACs already made to be installed. So I got a new AC. And right at that very time, my manager who hired me was transitioning into a new district, and I was getting a new manager. So they came in together as a team to kind of do a little meet and greet, introduce the new district manager to the team, have the team have a chance to say their goodbyes to our old favorite district manager. And this was right after I had sent that really nasty email. And my manager was CC'd on that email. He saw all the nasty, ugly stuff I said. That nasty, ugly email was also sent to his boss, who thought that I was kind of a ticking time bomb because of what I said. The new manager who was taking over our district asked my hiring manager, hey, how do you feel about that nasty email that Tiffany sent? I know that our boss is kind of upset about it. He thinks she's kind of a ticking time bomb. How do you feel? I know that you've been her manager for a long time. You're probably aware of what's going on in that store. Let me know what you think of it. And he said, I'll tell you what I think of it. I'm proud of her. She tried to be nice and she tried to be professional time and time again. For 2 years she tried, and I got CC'd on all those emails too. She finally did what she needed to do. She got ugly, and now the job is getting done. She holds herself accountable, and she will hold others accountable. I am damn proud of her. So sometimes it pays to be the ugly one. So the new district manager that was taking over our district was very understanding about the situation, understood that I wasn't just some mean, nasty, crazy lady. I had tried to professionally deal with the situation multiple times and nobody was holding themselves accountable, and I did what I needed to do to make sure that my team members were safe. However, her boss still thought I was a ticking time bomb and still did not like me and really had it out for me, but I don't care. I really don't care. He had the nerve to come into my store and tell me that he got CC'd on that email and he couldn't believe how nasty I was in that email. And if I was that upset about our AC not working, I should have let him know before I got that upset. Because how was he supposed to know that there was a problem if I didn't send him the memo? So he said. And at that moment, I almost said, cast me outside. Because this MFer came into my store that very first year that we were dealing with the 100-degree temperatures, after I had already sent multiple professional emails to our facilities department and CC'd him on it, so he did in fact get the memo. He walks in our door and he loosens his collar and goes, whew, it's hot in here. Is there a problem with the AC? And I said, yeah. I've sent multiple emails to facilities. I'm sure you've seen them. And he said, well, let's go over to Walmart and get you a box fan. We'll go get you a fan to cool this down because this is unbearable in here. Oh. So me, my boss, and my boss's boss, we all walked to Walmart together. We bought a box fan, which I already let them know that I didn't think it was a good idea because my store was a drive-through only store, which meant it was very, very tiny. There was not space for a box fan. We barely had space for the ingredients we needed to meet the needs of our customers. And they set the box fan up in the only place in our drive-through only store where a box fan possibly had room to set, which blew directly over our hot convection ovens. So the box fan actually increased the problem because the box fan blew the hot air and circulated the hottest air in the store around the store. Needless to say, that box fan didn't last very long, but for that jerk to come into my store and tell me that he didn't get the memo, what, he don't remember walking over to Walmart with me? He don't remember walking in my store going, is there a problem? Seriously, dude. You got the memo. You just chose not to do anything about it because you didn't have to be in the store suffering like the rest of us. I told you this was going to get ugly. So that's it for the good, bad, and the ugly. Those were just some of my experience that I had working at Starbucks. Some of the things that I noticed that were a little bit deceiving. Some of the things that I noticed were just kind of unethical. Also unrealistic expectations. but a few of the good things about the company too. So it's not all bad. It is a great place to go work if you are needing some flexible part-time hours, if you're needing health insurance while working part-time, or if you're wanting to take advantage of their ASU program and go to school and get your degree for free. So aside from all the ugly things I told you about, there are a few great things. So don't let this video deter you from ever applying to work at Starbucks. And like I said, it's been a while since I've worked there, so I'm sure things have changed. Hopefully things have changed. But that's what I experienced from 2015 to 2018 as a store manager for them. Thanks again for joining me on Life Rocks. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you know somebody who is thinking about going to work for Starbucks or who is wanting to become a Starbucks manager, feel free to share this video with them so that they can have a little bit of insight from a store manager on what my experience was like. So come catch me next time for part 2 of this series when I talk about how things changed and how I was treated when I became sick with multi-debarkment syndrome.
And aren't really achievable. Hello, Cosmic. How are you? And some of the company... And some of... Come here. Yes, you're a sweet boy. You're such a sweet boy. Yeah. You just need a lap to lay in? Yeah, you need a lap to lay in? Okay. Okay, you can sit here with me. Oh, look at that handsome kitty in the camera.